You ever stop and notice how your voice kind of changes when you're talking to your friends versus, say, your boss or your parents? It's not just you, I promise. The words we pick, the grammar we use, even how we pronounce things, all of it sends these little signals about who we are and which groups we belong to. And it turns out there's a whole science to this, and it reveals something pretty profound about social identity. So let's get into it. So, to start, we're going to go to a place that everybody knows: high school. Just picture it, the school courtyard during lunch break. It's never just a random jumble of kids, right? No way. It's like this invisible social map. And one student, in a study, just laid it all out perfectly.
You can just see it, can't you? She's not just pointing out where people are physically sitting. She's literally drawing the social battle lines. You got the burnout chicks, the jockey chicks, and the weirdos. But listen to how she started. Okay, us, the burnout chicks. That little word, us, is everything. She's placing herself on the map first.
And this whole scene is right at the heart of the work by a sociolinguist named Penelope Eckert. She actually spent a ton of time at this high school and realized that being a jock or a burnout wasn't just about where you sat at lunch. It was a whole identity. And it was reinforced by your clothes, your attitude, and, you guessed it, the specific way you talked. Okay, but what does any of this really have to do with language? I mean, you can see the jackets, you can hear the music, but how does the way you talk create these different tribes? That is the big question here. To get to the bottom of that, we need to grab onto one really important idea from the world of sociolinguistics. It's this concept that helps you see all these secret social groups that you're a part of every single day, long after you've ditched high school. And that idea is called a community of practice. Now, I know it sounds a little academic, but it's actually super simple. It's just any group of people who are doing something together. Could be playing on a team, working on a project, anything. When you do stuff together, you naturally start to develop your own lingo, your own inside jokes, your own way of talking. And what's wild is that we all belong to tons of these. I mean, think about your own life, right? Your family is one, your team at work, your book club, the group of parents trying to organize the school fair. Each one of those is like its own little world with its own unwritten rules for how you're supposed to talk. And this is the absolute key. In every single one of those groups, your language is basically your membership card. When you use the right slang or the right jargon or even just the right tone, you're signaling to everyone else, hey, I'm one of you. I get it. I belong here. All right, let's take this to the next level, because it's not just about passively belonging to a group. It's about actively building who we are in any given moment. So think of your identity less like a fixed label and more like a performance. Yeah, our identity isn't this one solid thing. You aren't just a gamer or just a manager. You're way more complex than that. And you perform different parts of yourself in different contexts. You might play up your serious, professional side at work, but then later that day, you're performing your goofy, relaxed side with your best friends. And the main way you switch between these roles is with your language. To really see this idea of performance in action, let's zoom in on a much more personal example. Let's meet a woman named Geraldine, who's telling a story about a pretty intense confrontation she got into. Whoa, okay, so that is some really powerful, really direct language. She is not messing around. But if you listen closely, there is so much more going on here than just telling a story. With every single word, she is actively building an image of herself for the person she's talking to.
And here's the context, which is absolutely crucial. Geraldine is a working-class Māori woman from New Zealand, and the person she's telling this story to is described by the researchers as being more educated and more feminine-looking. That power dynamic right there is the key to understanding the very specific language choices she's making.
So let's actually break this down. First, check out how she drops the G on words like fightin'. That's a classic marker of her working-class background. Then look at the next bit, the heavy swearing and that I says grammar instead of I said. All of that works together to project this really tough, almost masculine persona. And it's the consistency that matters. All these little choices woven together construct a very specific identity for her in that moment. So you see, in just a few sentences, she's not just reporting on something that happened in the past. She is performing her toughness. She is performing her working class identity. It's an identity she's building word by word for that specific audience in that specific moment. Okay, so we've seen the high school cliques and we've heard Geraldine's story. They seem pretty different, right? So what's the connection? And why does any of this actually matter to us? Well, it turns out they're showing us two sides of the very same coin. The high school kids show us how language draws the big, broad lines between social groups, the jocks and the burnouts. That's the macro level. But Geraldine's story shows us how we use these tiny, specific language tools to build our personal identity in a one-on-one conversation. That's the micro level. It's about the group you belong to and the person you are right here, right now. So if there's one big idea to take away from all this, it's this. Our identity isn't something that's just stamped on us. It's something we do. It's something we build and negotiate and perform every single day in every single conversation. And we all have our own little toolkit for putting on this performance. It's got the vocabulary we choose, how some groups use words like fun or fine in really particular ways. It's got our pronunciation, like saying fightin' instead of fighting. And it's got our grammar, like using I says instead of I said. These are the nuts and bolts we use to build who we are. So the next time you're chatting with someone, just listen. Listen to the little choices you're making and the ones they're making. It all kind of leaves you with this one big question to think about. Based on how you talk every single day, who are you?